just want to tell everybody, meetings are recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, please leave the meeting at this time. And we are recording.
Thank you. And I'd like to call to order the Jamaica Selectboard meeting for Monday, November 23rd. And the first item, as we typically do, is call for any late additions. And I have a few things that I've totally spaced on. So if I can, I'll throw those out there. I wanted to give just a quick update on the swap shop. I know that was a topic on last week's meeting. Also wanted to circle back on the Marquee sign in front of the town hall. That was an item that we discussed at last week's too, just to kind of bring closure to that. And then an update on the parking and traffic ordinance. Again, following up on last week's with the conversation with Charlie Peck. And I know there's a few other items out there too, but those are the ones I had.
And then David Barnum, who's joined us, is also, he had asked us.
Up to now, I'm David.
Hi, David. He had asked us to talk about Pikes Falls. He wants to take some pictures up there after dark. So he's coming to us to talk about that.
Okay, yep, I'll move that one. Basically, all these, I'll go 1, 2, 3 at the end of what's currently on here for the agenda items. Maybe we'll move David up first since
yeah, I mean, yeah.
At 6A, I guess we'll put him in at. So Paul, yes, one.
I have something I'd like to at least initiate. We need to give some serious thought and perhaps even some decisions and movement towards something like a charter change or something to deal with the lister situation and the flood zone administrator situation. At some point, we're going to need to present something in March to citizens about making some major changes to how we have our listers and our flood zone administrator and that sort of stuff managed. Because we don't have any people. We're going to have to talk about it in the budget meeting coming up. But I think we need to start thinking about how we want to do that, because that's going to be a lot of work and it's already November.
Yes, all good. So do you want that as an agenda item on tonight's to talk about that a little bit more, or?
Yeah, just to kind of, outline some plans of what we're going to do with it so we can start a process.
Okay. All right, and then I guess too, I had missed an email. It didn't get to me on a request from the Jamaica, the Planning Commission.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
For an additional member or somebody who's interested in being part of the Jamaica Planning Commission.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, actually, I mean, those all should hopefully go quickly, but it looks like a lot, but we'll get going. Okay. Item number 2, to approve the minutes from the October, or actually here I am, see, I didn't change that again, blah, blah, blah. I'm really falling behind.
November 9th.
The 9th meeting, yes.
I'll so move to approve the meetings from the November 9th meeting.
Second the motion.
Second from Jessica. Any discussion or changes, comments? Not comments, but changes. Good. All in favor of accepting the minutes from November 9th, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous approval, thank you. And Chris, we have you up at the top to discuss an update on the finding a location for the communication union district antenna.
Well, you mean the hub?
The hub, yes, hub, the CUD hub.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I think 2 meetings ago, the DV Fibers network is going to be a ring architecture. That's a circle with 2 hubs, one of which they're planning to put in Jamaica. And they've asked for a primary location and an alternate. Has to be on a property that the town owns. And I've recommended that the fire station be the primary and the town garage be the secondary. Besides town ownership, you also have to be able to provide backup power when the regular power is lost. I sent a picture of a hub around everybody this morning, if you've had a chance to see it. And it's just a standard switching cabinet sitting on top of a cement pad. It's about 5 square feet pad. And the decision, if you go along with this recommendation, it's not set in stone. It's if there's some really valid reason for changing it later on, it can be changed, but they do need to have a location set now so they can start the preliminary engineering design. There was one other question, I think Greg, you brought up on who pays for what. They get the regular power from the grid, so you don't need power, normal power from the either fire station or town garage. You do need emergency power and a backup. I don't know who pays for the propane or pays by the watt for emergency power. I don't think that was ever mentioned in any of the plans, but that can and should be part of the lease. So one way or another, we'll get compensated for it. Either, we can make it a fixed charge in the lease or have a term that, we pay by the watt or we get paid by the watt for emergency power. But one way or another, we won't be out of pocket. So I've been asked the board to make a decision. Yeah.
Two quick things. When I brought up the cost of this, we talked about this once before, and this is a commercial enterprise that we're supportive of, but nonetheless, it's a commercial enterprise. Are they reimbursing the property owners for these hubs in addition to just the consumption of power? Number two, Bob, who owns the property at the fire station? The town or the fire station? It's an independent, we're an Inc., right?
Yes, it's funny because we have exemption from the town taxes, so I presume the property is owned by the town. Yes, I think you're right. The town owns the property.
That's something that needs to be cleared up really tightly, though.
Yeah, we'll have to look more into the deed on that.
So anyway, those are the two costs.
Sarah can pull the deed, right, Sarah? I can even stop by tomorrow if you want.
So I have a question about the power. Now, does the fire station have a generator now?
Okay.
It does.
We do have a backup generator in the back. It all depends on where they're going to put this box location, because we do have propane underground, we have sewer underground, we have electrical underground, and as well as water.
So I'm just curious, would they have to install another generator for their equipment? That could be pricey, or what could they, again, they piggyback off of the fire station's generator. So
Where was the other proposed site, Chris?
The town garage.
Okay, town garage.
Well, those are my recommendations. Good, but it could be any building that the town owns, or any property that the town owns. But those two seem like the most likely spots.
They had the most space around them for sure, I think. I mean, the other option would be the town office because there's backup power there, but there's really not much space there.
Right.
I would think back to what you said, Chris, is that a lease would be drawn up and, certainly find out who owns what, but to draw up a lease and that would include a fee for the space, renting the space, and for the usage of the generator, however that gets built in.
Yeah, I mean, the terms of the lease are.
Right. If there's I'm sure there's a form.
I don't.
No,
Yeah,
down the road a little bit.
I'm sure there's a form of lease. There's a form of lease. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not like the CUD is negotiating with each town separate terms. I'm sure there's a standard. Normally is a standard form, and yeah.
there's a precedent. This was done in EC fiber up north, so
Right.
it must be a model somewhere.
Right, because remember, a lot of this is government, is indirect or direct government funding. So the government sticks its fingers in and makes sure that the terms are of a certain type and, you know, et cetera. So I don't think it's like we draw up a form of lease.
Chris, when do you need an answer by?
Tonight.
Okay.
Of a location.
If something comes up that we have to change our mind later, we can do it, but
And then would the CUD actually undertake the engineering study to determine the best location that's above the floodplain and outside of the underground wires and all that kind of stuff? I mean, they would determine a very specific location. That's not our requirement, is it?
I think they would defer to the fire department on where not to put it.
Okay.
Which brings up a good point because the fire department is in a floodplain area. We're just high enough above that. At least the station is anyway. So if there is a major flood again, all we do is open our doors and the water goes through. That's how the firehouse was designed. So that's something we may have to look into is you know, can they put that in the floodplain zone area?
Part of the town garage is too, but not much. Not very much.
I think when they put the garage in, they flattened out and elevated most of it above the
But
plane.
yeah, but there's a piece of the property that's in, isn't there?
There is still, yeah.
Okay.
That can be identified. I think if you take a look at the immediate area right around the building itself is probably okay. Down lower, I think you're correct.
Right. Well, I don't know. Can we tell him both places or? I'd almost think the town garage has less going on, but I'm no engineer, so I don't really know how that would work.
My thought about the town garage is, we know for sure that belongs to us. We're still not too sure about the fire station. But again, if that can be out of the way of Keith, I'd like to Keith weigh in on it, but if it can be, I'm being waved at by Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah. Yes, dear.
The fire department is on the grand list as their own entity, and I just pulled the land record, and the fire department does own that. I've got the
Okay.
deed in front of me.
So should one of us make a motion to approve the town garage lot as a location, and then we can start that process?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Can we discuss it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Seems to me we ought to get Keith to weigh in on it. I know it's the 11th hour, but he runs the show up there. He ought to be able to weigh in on the pros and cons of having this there.
I agree with that, but Chris said that if, it's not etched in stone, we can get out of it if we have to.
Yeah, I think we should obviously loop him in. There's no doubt, but
Yeah.
if we got to make a decision tonight,
We can support it with the contingency that it gets coordinated with Keith.
Yeah.
I think that, but what Chris is saying, that contingency is already there. We can always say, no, we're not going to put it here.
Right.
This is what we're thinking about. But if we change our mind, we change our mind.
And does the fact that the fire department owns their property, does that totally rule that out as a location? I'm not sure it does, but maybe it does.
I was thinking Christopher said it, one of the priorities was it's got to be on
Yeah.
town land. Is that right, Chris?
It's got to be, on town owned land.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it does rule out the fire department. I wasn't sure if it was just public land or you just had to have an agreement. Okay,
Well, you can't agree to put it on somebody else's land.
no, but the fire department could agree that they would accept it there.
Oh,
I'm just saying, as another option if the garage fell through. But anyways, I think there's still some options on the table and this is not in
Yeah.
stone, so to speak. So,
Like when Consolidated came to me, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was living down on Turkey Mountain Road, and they said, we want to put a fiber, cabinet in. I said, sure. I gave an easement, so I don't know. That's a different model. They could find somebody who would get an easement from that person, but it sounds to me like they want it on town land.
Yeah, I'm all for the town garage for now. I'm sure Keith wouldn't appreciate us putting it in front of one of the doors or something like that. But seems to be a little room down there.
Now, there's no backup power there though, is there?
Yes,
I
So
think so.
there is?
they have a generator. Mhm.
Okay, perfect then, okay.
Yep, that's why, yeah, that's good. All right, well,
It's on the
any other
table.
discussion? The motion is on the floor.
Motion is, if I recall, was to approve the town garage for the CUD.
That's
HUD.
correct.
Yes.
CUD hub.
So if there's no other discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor of the town garage?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait, Christopher's waving his hand.
There-
Are you also approving the fire station then as the alternate?
We can't,
No,
Can't,
Can't, no.
can't.
no,
Do we have to approve an alternate as well?
Yes.
no.
Do we want to say town hall, the town offices for
Then,
now?
The alternate,
No
yeah.
room in the town offices.
I think that's the
Why
only
not?
one that has backup power.
well,
Why
we
not
can
the
just
town
say, we can
offices?
just say that.
Yeah. For
The
purposes
other,
of
the other
tonight.
place, well, is the Jamaica Village School. They have a generator.
They do are-
Well,
Owned by, is it owned by the
who?
town?
I don't think
Is that
so.
owned by the CSU?
Well, our records are online, so Sarah can look it up. But we know that the town, the clerk's office is,
Yeah, we can do that as an alter. I guess that makes
Yeah,
sense. Then
that's
we
the
can always
alternate.
change it if we
right?
needed to.
I mean, I don't think we need to burden this vote.
No,
I will amend well, I guess I'll make another motion to make the town office an alternate site for the CUD fiber cabinet.
okay.
I second the motion.
Actually, I'm sorry.
One of the things,
Second.
one of the caveats that they have told us about this CUD is it's a noisemaker. And they suggested that it not be located anywhere near facilities that will be annoyed by this constant hum. And so if it's going to be at the town office, we're going to end up putting at the end of the building, which is close to the residents in the trees over by the tree.
I think the sense is that it's not going to be there. We just need to
Right, we
say
just-
another place.
Right, we're just trying to satisfy what's needed by the CUD. We're all aligned behind the garage. And even that we can reconsider, but let's not keep Chris from getting his work done. And
Motion's on the
Yeah.
floor.
Yep.
Sure.
So just as a little point of, I don't know, of semantics, where there was a motion to accept or to recommend the town garage independent of having an alternate, and that one just to complete that vote, and then we'll have a second vote
Oh.
for the alternate location, because we have already had, that motion's already on the floor.
I
It's
thought
already
we
been
voted though. I thought we had voted. Chris has raised his hand, but we all
yeah,
voted.
we all voted.
We all voted in
Yeah.
approval for
Approval.
the primary location.
Mhm.
So now secondary motion is, I'll have to ask, is any opposed to the primary
Sorry.
primary location?
What?
The motion on the floor originally was only for the primary location,
Right.
which we voted to approve.
Right.
But I didn't complete the vote by asking if anybody had, if there was anybody
Again,
opposing.
Opposed.
For
you're
parliamentary,
absolutely right, Greg.
for parliamentary simplification, I make a motion, we approve the town office as a secondary backup position. That way we don't have to go and undo
I
stuff.
already did that.
No, we're not undoing it. I was just finishing the first one. We hadn't completed the vote on the first motion.
Well, you said we did complete the vote.
No,
No,
we stopped when,
We voted, everybody was in approval, but I did not ask if there was any abstentions, or I didn't formally go through the rules.
Fine.
you are exactly right,
That one
Mr. Chair.
passes. Fire station is the primary location. Now Paul's got a motion on the,
No.
not fire station, I'm sorry.
I
yes.
have a motion on the table.
Yeah.
They have the motion.
Town garage is
Seconded
primary.
by Jessica.
Tom has a motion on the floor, seconded by Jessica. As the town office as the secondary. It's kind of messy, but I think we're getting it done. Any discussion on having the town office as the secondary alternate location?
We've had that.
All in favor of the town office?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No. For the reason stated, you're gonna pass it anyway.
So 4 in favor, 1 opposed to the town office, motion passes.
Right.
Sorry for the little messiness mudded in the water, Chris, but I think the results are there.
Butt in the water.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Chris.
And to be continued. Keep us posted. Thank you for your work.
I will. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Yeah. Next.
So the item number 4 on the agenda to discuss and set a date for upcoming budget meetings. It's that time of year. I think last year we actually had already had one possibly by now. With Thanksgiving coming up, the proposed date option would be on a Sunday afternoon. We had done this last year. It seemed to work well to get everybody together for a longer period of time, so you have less startup and shutdown time, so to speak. The day would be December 6th in the afternoon. I don't know if anybody else has any other suggestions or thoughts.
Ordinarily, the Sunday after Thanksgiving would be a travel time for everybody to be coming home. Hopefully, nobody's going anywhere. How about the 29th? So we've got more time to work on it, rather than cutting into December already.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, the 29th is actually better for me.
Okay, it works for me too.
Sure.
1 o'clock?
Everybody, Tom and Andy, that work for you? I guess we'd have to double check with Terry. But that should work. She said that she was pretty flexible in meeting on the Sundays.
In person, right?
Yes.
In person, in the town office, we can spread out in there.
Okay. Nope, I'm all good. Good with the 29th of November. Did we do all that in one day, or do we have one meeting first?
But 2 or 3 meetings
I
usually.
think we did 90% in one meeting and then came together to tie together the loose ends.
We always have
We
to
did 3
wait for
meetings last year.
something to do with the school or something.
Well,
We did 3 meetings last year.
we end up finding stuff.
We did half meeting one time, we did half it the next time, and then we tied it all together. But if we can spend time, I mean, the more we can get done in one day, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
So we want to start at 1?
1 o'clock.
Yes.
Sounds
Fine.
good. I guess technically we don't need a formal vote being administrative in nature, but that's so everybody knows and everybody's aware. We're all together. Perfect.
1 o'clock.
On my calendar. Alrighty.
That also gives us a little more time if we need some more time to get to it.
Absolutely. No, that's a great suggestion. Okay, the next item, item number 5, again, was just an update. Last meeting, we talked about the local concerns meeting for the State Park Bridge. That is scheduled for our December 14th meeting. I think that's our first meeting in December. So members of V-Trans and a few other engineering companies should be on the call to just gather information from the locals.
And you said what date is
Put
this?
out a letter to all the property owners in that area, some of the other concerned peoples, the State Park, Army Corps, et cetera. It's also going to be in the newspaper and in the Jamaica Journal email this week.
So what are we discussing at that meeting? It's just to get input?
It's input. The key players from the state will be on the call and they will be gathering information to kind of go along with, everything else that they've gathered up on it'll be a needs assessment, basically. Then they will propose, some alternates and come together again before us later in the spring.
So as far as design or?
No, not quite anywhere close to that yet. I think maybe there's some preliminary talk of that, but I think it's still just a needs assessment type of thing that they're gathering information and
Right.
stakeholder meeting.
And is it open to everybody?
It is open to everybody. Public meeting. It'll be at our select board meeting. Andy.
I believe when I was at the transportation committee meeting, don't quote me on this, but they may have a report on that last look they took at some of the structure other than the usual inspection. Something on the top. I think that might be part of it. I'm not sure. And then they're going to talk about just procedure about how this is going to play out time-wise. And I thought it was going to be a lot of like an informational meeting. From what I was here, one of the people that was speaking for V-Trans, she was saying that they were going to tell us where they're at with it, like with time, what kind of shape it was in. I thought that's what they were talking about. It kind of came up in another topic.
Yeah. Joel,
And
did
then-
you have other stuff from that, from the V-Trans thing?
Yeah, they talked about the superstructure. They weren't actually talking about the suspension at that time. They were talking about the condition of the superstructure.
Something on the top.
Right.
So good. I mean, that would be great. I mean, if they're there to gather information and to present what they know so far, that'd be awesome. And I think
That was my
time
sense
is
of
one
it.
thing too, a big lay out the schedule. Not in the immediate future. And I mean, it's till 3-4 years away.
Well, they can tell us all that.
Right, exactly. Okay, any other questions, concerns about that? I guess that was more just an update of that we're moving forward for that discussion. Item number 6, an update on the fire department false alarm ordinance that we've been working on. I'll kind of turn this to Bob just to give an update of the fire department's thinking at this time.
Evening, everyone. I talked to Greg the other day. Paul and I sat down, met with Greg, and after discussion was for us to kind of hold up on the ordinance. For some reason, we hadn't had any calls yet this year. Knock on wood, for false alarm stuff. So we're kind of like want to sit back a little bit and say maybe if we can try educate these people through the fire department as well as fire prevention programs that we have, and see if we can address some of these issues without having to drag the town into any of this craziness and stuff. So I'm kind of asking if we could table the information, finish up what we've done so far, so we have it there in the files, and then if we find definitely a need down the road, that we can pull it out and proceed with it forward. We just want to see what the board feels on that at this point.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that it takes 60 days to push this through. So it's not like, okay, we want it now, pull it out, sign it, we're ready to go. We have to go through that whole process, which is, advertising it after it's passed, and then, for 60 days. And then if no one challenges it, then it's accepted. So just to let you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's quite a lengthy or well-defined certification process to adopt an ordinance like that.
And I don't think you have to table it or anything. We just pick it up later.
Why do you want to stop the process at this point? I thought we were looking at a January 1 date.
Well, part of what we were talking about is under the general heading of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. One of the things we were complaining about was as Bob mentioned, the number of false calls we had. We haven't had none this year. And Bob went back and made a listing of the ones in the past. And there was one particular residence had multiple calls, but there's not that much of it to warrant going through all the rigmarole to set this up. As you said, it's going to be a lengthy process. We're going to have to define a lot of otherwise unentangled little tentacles between the town and the fire department. And so it just seemed like an awful lot of work for very little payoff.
I'm fine with letting it sit for a while, if that's what you guys want to do.
Yep, whatever. I'm
Yeah,
just asking.
yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that came out of this was what Paul talked about, the entangled nature of things. I mean, the fire department being an independent entity of the town and stuff like that. So it's kind of, in a good way, brought up a bunch of things that we can, maybe kind of make a little bit firmer in our relationship going forward. And then laying in an ordinance is a little bit more seamless. Yeah, it's fine with me too. I mean, it just want to, the work's done. It's not going away. So it's not money thrown away or anything. I mean, the ordinance is really drafted to the, nth degree. It's pretty tight, I guess, as far as just need to pull the trigger whenever we're ready.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, so I thank you, Bob. All right, so the couple that kind of, other than the formality or the administrative side of the agenda, we're on to the new items. I had forgotten a few things from last week, and one of them was the marquee sign wording. We had a discussion on that last week. Joel had offered to put together and design a sign for in that marquee. And I didn't want to, I didn't want to leave it just hanging. I mean, wanted to come to some conclusion on that. So
I was supposed to provide him language and I failed to do so. My bad.
okay. So are we, I mean, the language, I guess, would be exactly what was on the banner. I mean, we can certainly move this to the next meeting if we're not comfortable with it, but the banner message that we're having a hard time finding a location of the banner, the suggestion was we could put that message on the marquee.
That was
Yeah.
my understanding. Yeah. What about not being able to grow hate with rocks
Yeah.
or something like that?
I'll get to the language, Joel. I apologize.
Well, it sounds like the language is going to be verbatim off the banner.
Yeah, right. So it was, hate does not grow in Vermont's rocky soil.
Why not put that one on the marquee?
Yeah, and I guess last week it was not, I'm in agreement with that, but I think last week it wasn't a formal conclusion of that. So I wanted to bring it up and formalize it so that we're moving forward and everybody's on the same page.
I
Okay.
think it came to conclusion. I think we had decided that I was going to get with Joel and give him the language,
Right. That's my recollection.
and I did not.
Joel,
Yeah, what I was thinking of doing is taking those words and making them large enough to be able to see. And in a small inset, put the town statement so that if somebody walked up to see it, they could.
That's not what we talked about before.
And do it in an artistic way so it's attractive.
I guess I'm afraid that if there's a lot to be said with just the rocks part, if you start taking some of that space away for the other extended statement, then that detracts from the ability to make the rock statement large enough for people to read.
Well, I put it to the board to decide on.
Well, there's that, and we didn't talk about that before. Now we're talking about, so a whole different poster going in there.
yeah, and I think that's maybe my misunderstanding that I didn't know that
No.
we were.
No, you're not misunderstanding. That's not what we talked about last time.
No, but I mean, as far as the form, whatever it said formally, so,
I think we debated last time and decided to just put what's on the banner.
The rock part.
Yes.
I think we can move forward with that tonight because we don't have to go back and rehash the other statement and all the other stuff. I like the idea of it being visible, large enough. And I think Joel made a good point about making it large enough for that to be read. And I just don't want to put anything extensive elsewhere on that sign that, inhibits his ability to put as much possible on the sign. Just my thoughts.
okay. I would like to throw out the idea of having an alternative to say, here's how big it would look with both of those messages on there, and have it presented in a 8.5 by 11 rough design and show how big that other statement would make or not make. But that's just an idea I had.
I don't think that's a bad idea, Joel. If you can mock up both of them, how they would look, and present it to us, and we can take a peek and then
Agree.
make a
Agree,
decision
Joel's
next
up
meeting.
for it.
I won't print a final poster until you've approved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A thought on that. Today's the last meeting in November. We've got one scheduled for December. That doesn't give us a lot of time to get it done and a lot of time to produce it. If he's going to present it to us at our next meeting, that's going to be halfway through December. I'd like, frankly, to see it up before Christmas.
That also depends on Karen or Drew repairing the marquee.
Which can be done independently, just as far as
I can
getting.
talk to her. I'll talk to her about it.
Okay, it shouldn't take too much effort. They just have to sink 2 pressure-treated posts into the ground and screw the marquee to it.
Before the ground freezes.
Before that,
the ground
it was repaired with a couple of pieces of angle iron, which didn't go deep enough, so.
Okay. Well, I think the general consensus of the board, I don't think we need to vote on it. We'll just keep moving forward on it. We'll see a couple options. I still think it could be done before Christmas if Drew was able to get in there, and if you presented something next week or the 14th, it could be put up there a couple of days later, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Does that make?
But again, you could do mock-ups, right? I mean, we're not asking you to print the
Right,
posters,
right, a
but
mock-up.
you could show us what you want. You could send it to us.
Something to scale that-
I can send it to you on an 8x10 sheet of paper, or I can send it to you digitally.
Digitally would be how I prefer it.
Okay.
All right, I personally thought we kind of maybe left something hanging, so, last week, so I just wanted to fully close that out. So,
I didn't want to start doing it until you said yes. Remember at the end of the meeting, I said.
right,
I won't
exactly.
Do anything until you say yes.
Wait,
So-
hold it, just for the record. Do whatever you want. But we did say yes, and just Tom was busy or whatever and didn't give it to Joel, or it would be done. Is that what was supposed to happen? We'd be already having a
was supposed to
poster.
happen.
All right, so.
And I
so
just
it
sent it over
is-
to him right now.
We had decided that, for my own sanity, we had decided that. And I'm not saying that I'm against this addendum, but, just so I don't have to keep looking at tapes. We did.
Like I said, I apologize. I looked at the tape and I thought it was left hanging, so my bad. So,
It's okay.
I remember saying that I won't do it until you make an absolute affirmative. And
I remember
my
Tom saying,
recollection- and my
doesn't matter
recollection,
anyway.
you
the
did.
net result
Put
is.
whatever you want on it. Put Merry Christmas,
send
Happy
us-
New Year, and everything else.
Just send us a couple of mock-ups and
We
we
could
can
get a
decide next.
Bigger mark. Because there's nothing else going on at the town hall.
Election.
Let's
All
just,
right, I think we're all on the same page, and
Okay.
however we got there might be a little different, so. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joel. Another item that I wanted to kind of just bring back from last week too, there was an update on Swap Shop. Tom brought up that the place was getting kind of overrun with lots of things just being kind of thrown in there. Dan took the initiative and is continuing to take the initiative to better manage that place, that space. It's been fully cleaned out with a lot of the junk out of there. I'm working on some signage with them to, better define what cannot go in there. And I'm also drafting up some stuff to put into the Jamaica Journal so that everybody that receives that will know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable at the swap shop. So if anybody has any other ideas to add to that.
I will say it is empty.
Just an
Get out.
observance, too.
Like, wow, like night and day, which is great. So let's hope we can continue to manage.
I would just want to say, I was up there the other day. Well, what happened here? And the place was busy. And somebody brought some stuff into the swap shop. And neither me nor Dan saw it. And then we went and looked, and it was stuff that should have went into the demo thing. And he goes, "This happens to me now and again. You were just here to witness it." Well, I don't know if they did it intentionally, but while he was either talking to me, or there was about 15 cars there, it seemed like. And then while we were talking about it, there was nobody. So at times, everyone could do a better job probably, but Dan is like, he can't keep an eye on that brush pile, the swap shop, and the demo, try to get someone to write him a check. It's just unreal sometimes. So people take advantage of that. Not everybody, but they do, because they don't want to pay to throw, write a check for $6, or that they don't have tokens to throw away a few things. So I think, some of that happens.
Let's hope that if we get good signage up though, that
I think it'll help.
it'll deter people.
Yeah,
And is it possible, and maybe it's not how it operates, but I remember when I was young, a little girl, we used to sometimes have to wait in line. Whoever was managing it 30 years ago plus, if there were a lot of people, he stopped. We were all stopped, and we waited in a line behind the stop sign until someone had left, and then a next person came in. And it was never that long,
Right.
but I distinctly remember that, because especially during the winter, when there would be a lot of people leaving on a Sunday, we'd have to wait. So is there can we make it clear to Dan that if he looks and he sees that there's already 10, or even, 4 cars, like maybe 4 cars is enough for him to be comfortable with. And then everybody else has to wait until there's time. Just a thought.
Yeah, there's a stop sign.
Yeah, or just, and then talking to the people, are you going to be putting anything in the swap shop? What do you have? Oh, well, I've got these crappy
Right.
books or whatever. He's rejected my stuff when I tell him,
These
if
old
I brought
sneakers.
books or skewts, he's like, you can't put that in there. I said, all right. So, he needs to engage everybody then. And I think that is some of the challenge. And again, if he's really busy, but he should be at the gate there, at the stop sign, talking to people.
Yeah,
rather than
good point. I mean, like the engagement should be at the very beginning and not as you get to the swap shop
right.
or any other
That would be
location.
good. That would be good if he wasn't elsewhere on the property watching people dump hard stuff and watching the bottles and cans and the swap
Right.
shop. There's
Right.
a lot of
It's
territory
not
to cover
easy.
for one set of feet.
It definitely gets overwhelming. Yeah. I mean, there's times when there's nobody there, and like Andy said, there's times where you can't even squeeze in there sideways.
Yeah, I just think he should feel comfortable saying to someone, you need to stay here, stay here, and I'll let you know when you can come in. It'll just take a minute.
Yeah. Well, good feedback. I mean, I think he welcomes suggestions too. I mean, sometimes doesn't, too many suggestions is overwhelming, but all these things that can help are great. Okay. The other update I just wanted to provide is that there was some discussion at the last meeting too on some of the parking ordinance, traffic ordinance, changing of the speed limits, road reclassifications, all that. Those two are pretty complicated procedures, and Charlie has offered, I spoke with him, he's offered to work with the planning commission to draft up some proposed ordinance changes or guidelines and things like that on all of those issues. So that's kind of in the works. I'll leave it at that. I mean, there's a lot to it.
Speaking of planning commission, I meant to ask Chris, or maybe I should wait, but what happened with the grant application for the engineering study is that still in the works, or?
As far as I know, it's definitely still in the works. There was the monies actually for this year were already spoken for. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
that turned out, the timing was just off a little bit. I
Okay.
think we found that out when they submitted it.
News to me.
It's been kind of spearheading that. And I think it's still moving forward. And I don't know that too much of the details, but we're definitely in line for next year's, but I don't think it's gone. I don't know how formal, but that's something we can certainly ask Brian to give an update at the next meeting. And I think that's well worth it.
Well, I asked, last time I talked to the clerk, probably 2 weeks ago, I asked her about that and she didn't know anything about it, but I guess she wouldn't if she wasn't in on it. So that's why I asked.
There's a subcommittee of the JPC that is working on it. So yes, it's still going on. And I think, having Brian talk for a few minutes would.
No, I just didn't know whether it took forever or now I know that they were spoken
No,
for.
they actually did
Forever, too.
submit the application. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess the next one was the request for the photography, and it's Dan, you said, right? Dave, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
So yes, go ahead.
I think I was looking for permission to shoot at the falls in about an hour or so, some evening, and I put some small lights on my drone, and I hover the drone over a certain spot and light the area. It's kind of an interesting look. I sent some pictures.
Really, really beautiful. Yeah.
And that's it. It's kind of a in and out and low, no fuss, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know. I mean, certainly other comments. Some of my first thoughts are we certainly would bring that. I'm thinking just some of the surrounding residents up there that are very, observant of what's going on at the falls, just to let them know to see if there's any concerns. But it seems pretty non-intrusive, so it's not going to really, you're not there for long and things like that. So
I would go there early too, like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. I wouldn't be there late.
You're talking about just shooting the town's land and not the adjacent public property, right?
Nope, I'd be right there down at the falls, right down the water.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we need formal approval. I would like to go to some of the, I mean, just to bring it up, get back to like the Dick, some of the surrounding landowners and just let them know. I can't imagine any concern. Do you have a specific date in mind, or you were just waiting to, you can pick?
No, I was scouting and I saw the sign, so I thought I'd ask permission. I would go on a clear night with no wind. I mean, it's sort of it can't be too cold. It's got a lot of restrictions to it, so I don't really know exactly when we're going, but I could let somebody know if I was going to be going a particular night.
Yeah, the Gibsons might want to
I
know.
think the Gibsons would be the ones to let know, right?
They probably, most likely, I probably go in there and get out of there before anybody knew I was there. That's the way I look at it, but I would love to talk to somebody if they would like to hear from me.
Yeah, well, I think I would let them know and certainly maybe put them in touch with you. They are an immediate adjacent landowner and they certainly would see the light and things like that and maybe just be curious. I don't think it.
Yeah, great.
Only thing I would request is that when you do decide to do it, let Bob or I or somebody from the fire department know that you're going to be there after dark.
Absolutely.
Now, if something goes south, we at least know what's going on.
No, certainly. Yep.
Yep, that makes sense.
Sure, stranger things have been witnessed up there than that, but bright lights in the sky, I don't know, that's
You never know.
always fun.
Well, that'd probably be about 30 feet off the water, so it wouldn't be out of the tree line. You really wouldn't see it anywhere.
Cool.
They're very small lights, they're about big, so they're very tiny.
You might want to wait till after hunting season just to be safe.
Well, they're not supposed to be hunting at night, but
You're not supposed to be shooting unidentified moving objects either,
That's
but
right.
We'd love to see the photo when it's completed or some of the photos.
yes, yes.
Love to. I'll definitely show the photo. Yep.
Okay.
good luck.
So I have permission, or should I wait to hear from somebody with the Gibsons, whoever they are?
I think it's pretty unanimous in the board's agreement, but let me through Tom, and I think I have your contact information too. I may have been CC'd.
I forwarded that. So yeah.
We'll get back to you. I mean, if that's okay with the board, I'll just make a point to get a hold of the
Absolutely.
Gibsons and just verify with them that it's okay, that they feel comfortable, and then I'll circle
Thank you
back.
for asking.
Yes, very much. Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you.
Oh, good luck.
Take care, David.
So the one other item here was, and Jessica brought this to my attention today. It seemed that maybe it got bounced out of my email. There was a request, another missed item on the, regarding a request from Scott Gordon interested in being a member of the Jamaica Planning Commission. So I'll turn it to you, Jessica. You know a little bit more about it than I do. So
Sure. Thanks. So I think some of you might recall that the Jamaica Planning Commission is actually down a member. In the last session, Rebecca stepped down as chair, but then John was appointed as a member, and then we lost Jason Cass. So the board has been operating at a deficit for some months now, and a name was raised at the last planning commission meeting. That's Scott Gordon. Some of you know him well. Paul, for example, knows him well. He's a member of the EMT team for the town of Jamaica's fire department. I don't know if is Bob still on?
Bob's on.
Yeah, Bob is on. So Bob also knows him. For those of you who don't know him, he and his wife moved back to Jamaica after having been longtime residents here. I think his letter kind of quite eloquently states his deep affection for the town. He's obviously demonstrated a deep commitment to the town. He and his wife and two adorable twin daughters live in Elaine Beckwith's house. They bought the blue house from Elaine Beckwith, so he's right in the center of town. He's a businessman. He's worked with my husband, Patrick McQuillan, who's also on the JPC. and he's very interested. It's a reasonable time commitment for him, and with his building experience, his business experience, and his experience with town operations, he seems like an all-around ideal candidate. And he's just very down to earth, a real practical person. So
I read the letter. I'm all for it if the board is.
Make a motion to approve, Scott
Gordon.
For the Jamaica Planning Commission.
I'll second
Second.
that.
Super. Any further discussion? That sounds awesome.
Just have a full crew again.
All in favor of nominating Scott to the Jamaica Planning Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None.
Uh,
Oops, I messed up again.
we're not nominating him, we're appointing him.
Appointed. Perfect. Yes.
I didn't even hear that. Well, okay.
So appointing, all in favor of appointing Scott Gordon to the Jamaica Planning Commission. Say
Yes.
aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good choice.
Yeah, super. I'm psyched to have somebody new involved. It's awesome.
Yes.
And he can write.
And then the last item, I guess, was, I think when I say, I guess, only because I think it's the last item. For Paul had brought up to begin the discussion conversation of, as some of you may know, and I think it was brought up in a previous meeting, the listers, Lewis said that he does not intend to run as a lister again. We may be searching for listers. It's certainly a complicated job, getting more and more complicated to run the software, et cetera, and also just the nuances of the law. We're in a similar situation then with the flood zone administrator. So Paul brings up that those things, we all need to be working down the road that at town meeting, whatever town meeting looks like, and that's another thing to discuss, that we be thinking of what we need to do to either appoint professionals, or how do we need to be changing our charter. And, I know it came up a few years ago, but I don't know if, go ahead, Paul, you can add to that. I like the rambles too much.
Sure. Here's my thoughts on this. First of all, my little piece of that thought is, I don't want to make a decision about how to run a town meeting until we get closer to it, because who knows what this corona crisis is going to look like. But let's just stick to the narrow thing that has to be done anyway. In order to make this listers a hired job, and the other flood zone people, we're going to have a charter change. And I'm personally not sure of all the ramifications of that. I know it's complicated. I know, but it has to be done, because I think also it has to be approved upstream in state someplace. Sarah may know more about that than I, but we ought to get started on it, because we need to we're going to have to get a vote in March to be able to go ahead and start looking for other people. And we're going to need other people pretty soon. This isn't going to be able to be put off for another year. This is something we've got to do in March.
Was
Yeah.
that a charter change when we decided to not vote in a town clerk and a treasurer to hire one?
I believe it was.
Were you on the board
Was it charter?
then?
I
Yeah.
wasn't.
Were you in on
The
that,
charter.
Paul?
Yeah, I believe it was, but don't quote me on my memory, but I believe it was.
I believe
think
it
it
was
was.
too. It was the charter. I wasn't on the board, but I remember.
Yeah, that's
I
what
was.
I'm also not 100% sure that we would need the charter change, but I don't know. Only thinking back to just a few years ago, it was an warned item on the agenda to hire the listers.
Oh, that's true. I remember that. That was an item at the town meeting, yeah.
So it's out there, but maybe that makes sense to go back to maybe in our budget meeting, or even prior to then, I'll go research with the attorney just to say, what do we need to do to be moving forward on these things?
And I know that Lou's leaving, but should we talk to Lou? Because maybe he's already done some of this legwork,
We certainly
figured
need,
out what we need to do.
We
So
need
I
to-
think we invite him to a select board meeting, or talk to him offline and say, hey, what do you think? Have him come and present to us and say, this is what I think you guys should do. Because I know he did do that back in,
Yes.
it was back in the fall or back in the summer.
Yeah,
He came in and said, hey, I think I'm leaving. My house is going to eventually sell and I'm going to be gone. So here's
Right.
some ideas. I'd love to hear his ideas, because I
Yeah.
think he's been doing it so long that we need to.
Yeah, Greg, before we incur legal fees, I think probably hearing from Lou, and I can do some free legal work, and then we can confirm it
Yeah.
with
I
Nick.
think Lou has pretty much stated, and I sometimes lose track of whether it was in what meeting or what context it was in. I don't know if it's been formally in front of the board, but he has stated that his suggestion would be that to hire, and that's what I recall.
It was
But
in
I don't
front of
know
the board.
what capacity he made that, so.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
hire-
also suggested another way to do the listing job. Remember?
Right, and have,
How doing an appraisal every 5 years or something like that and getting rid of maybe a lister or something. He may.
Well, are we
present us
down
with
one
that
anyway right
again-
now, right?
That again too, but
right, yeah.
When we had this crisis come up a couple of years ago, when we were short lots of listers and Lou was on the verge of selling his house, had some impetus to make some changes and look around. And I know a lot of discussions were held. Luckily, Lou decided, well, let me rephrase it. Sadly, Lou didn't sell his house. And so it was a benefit to us. He stuck it out for a little while longer, but he's not going to forever. We need to act on it now. And I think definitely Lou needs to be in the loop on this. He's got a lot of good ideas. He's already done a lot of legwork.
Mhm.
I think another lister is not gonna re-up either. One of our other ones. I would
Right.
rather leave their name out.
There's only one
I
other.
know, but still,
Nice.
out of courtesy.
Yeah, and then the flood zone administrator, I mean, that's got a whole different thing too, and Lou fills that role, so that's also another, I don't know what the options are for that.
Me either.
Similar. Charter change and no other choices. There's nobody
So,
clamoring for
Why
this.
don't we invite Lou to the next meeting?
Let's invite Lou. We'll do some,
And
each
then-
one of us can do some research on our own to find out what we need to do. And we're also going to be, I mean, some of the town meeting things can't wait till right at the last minute either to decide on how we're going to proceed. I mean, it does have to be warned in advance, and whether we, how we run the meeting, and also whether it's in person or it's an Australian ballot. There's a lot of questions to that also.
I'll put that question to Sarah. Sarah, what is the last drop dead date before the warning goes out? You're still muted. There you go.
Sometime in January. I think it's like January 20th, 22nd,
That was my
but I
memory.
could be
40
wrong.
days
It could be,
before the
I
meeting.
think that's when,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's so many days before the
But
meeting, but
it has to
30
be
or-
done by the time we send the town report to print.
right. And that's the hard date, because that's got to be in the
Yeah,
town
so it's got to
report
go to
before it's sent
print
out.
and then still got to get in the mail and get to people 40 days in advance. So we're talking early to mid-January at the latest. So,
We have
Yeah.
some decisions to make.
All right.
okay. The rest of the items are more, review the pay orders for sure. Everybody take a look at them. I haven't looked at them yet. Paul, a comment, a
I have
question?
a question. We had a payment of $592.56 for a cylinder side dump pro line floor. Does anybody know what that is? It's like $600. Cylinder side dump pro line floor. And I couldn't tell from the name on the invoice what the hell it was.
Something for the garage, I'm sure.
Maybe. I'm just curious. I didn't have a clue. I'm
Yeah.
sure Terry knows, but she wasn't.
Check with Terry. I'll check with Terry.
I'm sure it's legitimate. I'm just curious.
Well, it may, who knows? Maybe it's not. No.
Should we, on another, are we still in pay orders or?
Well,
Yeah.
just one more thing.
I'd just like to
did-
thank,
yeah.
I would just like to thank Lisa Mann for the letter. For
Yeah.
the select board,
Yeah.
for all the work you've done on, which is thanking us for the speed signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, any update from the state? on what
They've
they're-
been hard to get a hold of. Terry's been kind of knocking at their door continuously to try to get them to come out and approve the locations.
Okay.
I think that's where it stands right now. They actually do a walkthrough and say, yes, that's a good spot.
Just asking.
And I don't know, I really don't know why it's taking so long. It's getting a little frustrating because it means the ground's frozen and we won't be able to move on it.
Oh, we're trying.
Yeah, keep pushing.
Another thing, we may be getting a letter, but he told me to tell you, Matt Jenks, who lives on Castle Hill, is that the road that goes off the, what's the road that goes to the transfer station?
Yep.
It's getting late.
Yep.
He lives up on that Castle Hill or whatever. He'd like to thank the road crew again, and he said he might follow up with a letter for the good job they do on his road and the other roads in town. Just caught me the other day and told me that for about 5 minutes.
I'd certainly welcome having that posted on their bulletin board. I don't think those guys get thanked enough. They get mostly grief.
Well, this isn't grief. This was to thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks. Any other pay order kind of thing? And public comments? Joel, I think you're the only public. Thank you for being the public. Any other comments?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
Good.
All in favor of adjourning, we're out of here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all. Bye, Sarah.
I'll get this to you.